My brother's graduation gave everyone a gift except me. So I walked away quietly, built my own path, and watched the golden story crack. If I had $1 for every time my family made me feel like a leftover, I wouldn't be rich, but I'd have enough for a really passive-aggressive billboard outside their house. Something like, "Thanks for nothing," literally. Growing up, my brother Jeremy was the golden child, laminated and framed. The kid who brought home spelling bee trophies, got perfect attendance medals, and once cried because he only got 98 on a math test. My parents treated that like a national crisis. I think Mom actually Googled, "Is 98% a learning disability?" Meanwhile, I was the kid who didn't make waves or apparently memories. I wasn't bad. I just wasn't branded. If Jeremy was a specialty latte with custom foam art, I was the cup of room temperature water that came free with it. It wasn't always this dramatic. When we were younger, it was just little things. Jeremy got new shoes. I got his gently used ones. He got a cake with layers and edible gold. I got a candle stuck in a Costco muffin. He got a Letterman jacket with his name stitched in gold. I got a thrift store hoodie that said Eric across the chest. By the time high school hit, it wasn't just subtle favoritism. It was full-blown, "We thought you were still at school" energy. I wasn't grounded or rebellious. I was just forgettable. Once they left me at the grocery store for 2 hours. Jeremy had asked to go to a science fair, and they all just went. I moved out at 19 quietly. No big blowout, no slammed doors. I just packed up my stuff during spring break, left a note on the fridge, and took a bus to another city. Took a gap year that turned into a gap decade. Worked 2 jobs. Bounced around apartments with weird roommates and even weirder plumbing, and slowly built something resembling a life. We weren't estranged exactly, just out of sync. We texted maybe 3 times a year. I'd get the occasional happy birthday message. Once it arrived 2 days late and just said HBD with a partying face from Mom. One year she called me Kevin. My name is Ryan. Which brings us to the graduation. Jeremy had finished law school or med school, or maybe that weird dual degree in business administration and emotional manipulation. I'm kidding. He actually got his MBA. Top of his class. My parents were glowing like they'd given birth to a spreadsheet. I wasn't invited. Not really. No formal email, no text, but my cousin Jordan, shout out to the only real one in the family, casually mentioned it during a call. "You going to Jeremy's thing next Saturday?" What thing? "The graduation huge event. Your mom's making personalized gift bags and everything." Of course she is." I asked if he was sure I was even included. He paused. "I mean, your family, right?" "Right. That's the thing about my family. You're always technically included. Just never considered. You're allowed to exist in the room, just not in the photo. You get a slice of cake if there's extra. You get asked how you're doing, but only after Jeremy finishes his 5-minute speech about how he's transitioning into venture capital with a passion for social good. Still, I booked the day off work and borrowed a button-up from my roommate. The sleeves were too short, but whatever, and I bought a card. I still remember what I wrote, "Proud of you, man, even if you didn't need me to be." It was the most honest thing I'd said to him in years. The graduation was being held at this country club-looking venue with perfectly trimmed hedges and chairs that looked like they were rented from a royal wedding. I showed up early because I didn't want to risk walking in mid-ceremony and getting the family stink eye. When I stepped inside, I noticed 3 things immediately. My brother's face was on a banner. There was a literal ice sculpture shaped like a graduation cap. Everyone was getting a gift bag at the check-in table, monogrammed with gold foil lettering and navy tissue paper. I stood in line behind a lady in pearls who smelled like 6-figure perfume and said things like, "Jeremy has such presence." When I got to the front, the woman handing out bags looked confused. "Name?" she asked. "Ryan Carter." She flipped through a list, her eyebrows furrowing. Then she looked up and gave me the kind of smile dentists give you before they start drilling. "Oh, I don't see your name here." Before I could reply, I heard my mom's voice behind me. "Ryan, you came." She smiled, but it was the kind of smile you give when a guest RSVPs no and still shows up. "Yeah," I said. "Surprise." She touched my arm, leaned in, and said it. "We didn't think you'd be here." Not, "We're so glad you came." Not, "Jeremy will be thrilled." Just, "We didn't think you'd be here." It wasn't hostile. It was worse. It was dismissive. I laughed, because what else do you do when your mom greets you like an unexpected +1 to a party you were technically born into? Then she pivoted. "Why don't you go find a seat ceremony starting soon?" I found a chair in the back row behind a pillar next to the catering door. Every few minutes, a waiter bumped the side of my chair with a tray of shrimp cocktail. At one point, someone's toddler handed me a half-eaten cookie like we were in the same demographic. Jeremy walked across the stage like he owned the air around him. My dad stood to clap. My mom wiped away a single tear. I clapped too out of reflex, not pride. After the ceremony, everyone gathered for photos. Family only, they said. I waited to be waved in. I wasn't. Then came dinner. The reception hall had banners, more photos, and a big white screen with Jeremy Carter, The Journey Begins, projected in bold serif font. I thought it was just one of those NBA highlight reels until the music cut and a new slideshow popped up. It wasn't a graduation montage. It was a business pitch. Jeremy stepped up to the mic and announced the launch of his brand new consulting startup. Slide after slide charts logos, a sleek intro video. He was unveiling it like it was the next Apple. Everyone clapped. Someone even yelled, "This kid's going places." Champagne bottles popped. Toasts were made. And then Dad got on stage. "We're so proud of our son," he said. "So proud, in fact, that we've decided to be the first investors in his new venture." I sat there frozen because 6 years ago, I asked my parents to help me start a mobile repair business. Nothing big, just some startup capital, a van, some tools. I had planned spreadsheets, even a website mock-up. Dad looked at me and said, "We're not in a position to invest in hobbies." Now he was standing under chandeliers handing my brother a 6-figure check. That was the moment right there, not the missing gift bag. Not the seating chart, not the dismissive hug, this betrayal wrapped in confetti and applause. I didn't make a scene. I didn't stand up and yell. I didn't throw my water glass or call out their hypocrisy. I just stood, walked out, and sat in my car. I looked at the card I had written for Jeremy, still sealed, still hopeful. Then I opened the glove box and stuffed it inside. That night I checked out of the motel I'd booked for 2 nights and drove home 6 hours in silence. Didn't answer texts, didn't say goodbye. I wasn't just hurt, I was done. I don't know if you've ever driven 6 hours in silence, but it's the kind of experience that makes you question your entire personality. I cycled through every emotion: anger, sadness, regret, hunger, more anger, and finally this strange emptiness, like the rage burned itself out and left a crater where my self-worth used to sit. I got home just past 2 a.m. Tossed my bag in the corner and collapsed onto my mattress like a dropped grocery bag. Didn't even change clothes. Just lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many times a person can be told they don't matter before they start believing it. The next morning, I opened the glove compartment and looked at that stupid card again. "Proud of you, man. Even if you didn't need me to be." I should have known that sentence was too generous. I tossed it in the trash, and then sat down on my raggedy couch and let my brain run a highlight reel. Except mine wasn't set to nostalgic music. It was more like a horror compilation of every time I'd been told no, while Jeremy got yes with whipped cream and sprinkles. The time I asked for help with my community college tuition and got a lecture about financial independence. The time Jeremy said he wanted to study abroad in Italy and they pulled $12,000 out of somewhere magical like parents in a feel-good Netflix movie. The time I needed new tires and they told me to just Uber for a while. The time Jeremy crashed their car and they bought him a new one to build his confidence. I think the moment that broke something in me was when I pitched them my mobile tech repair business. I had the whole plan mapped out: service pricing, projected revenue, a clean little logo with a lightning bolt in it. I called it Snap Fix. I sat them down, gave them a printout. Dad nodded like he was listening. Mom smiled like she was watching a toddler explain how clouds work. And when I finished, they said, almost in sync, "It's cute that you're thinking like this. Cute." They called my plan cute. Then, Jeremy said over dinner that he was thinking about launching a leadership podcast, and Mom asked if he needed a producer. I know it sounds petty, but if you've ever had an entire childhood of being the second plate at Thanksgiving, "Oh, we didn't know you'd want one, kid," it sticks. That morning, I opened my phone and scrolled through Jeremy's new business Instagram. He had a highlight reel from the graduation, now rebranded as a soft launch event. Hashtags like #NextGenLeadership and #Winslow Consulting filled every caption. I watched the clip of Dad announcing the investment again. It physically hurt. I turned my phone off and spent the rest of the day applying for every part-time gig I could find. I didn't care what it was: dog walking, tech support, one-off electrical jobs. If it got me money, I was in. Because if they thought I was just going to disappear again and sulk in the shadows, they forgot who they raised. They raised a quiet kid. not a weak one. Turns out when you stop caring whether your family thinks you're successful, you suddenly start moving a lot faster. Within a week, I had 2 small jobs lined up. One as a weekend tech assistant for a local indie theater, basically resetting projectors and pretending to know why HDMI cables stopped working. And one doing remote IT support for a dental clinic that paid decent money and gift cards from promotions. I was officially the proud owner of 7 Starbucks cards with $5.73 each on them. I also found a client on Reddit, a guy running a vintage record shop who needed help setting up an e-commerce site. I didn't have much to show for credentials, but he liked my blunt messages and offered me a trial gig. That turned into a full website redesign. And by full, I mean he paid me in vinyl and $400 cash under the table. Every time someone asked me what I did, I just said I fixed things, which was true. I fixed wires, screens, broken plugs, even a relationship or two if you count helping a barista recover her ex's Spotify login. One night, after finishing a long shift at the theater, I was waiting for my bus when I saw Jeremy's Instagram post pop up through a mutual friend's story. He was on a yacht in a suit with a quote, "You don't build an empire by asking for permission." The caption tagged at Winslow Consulting. His company already had 3,000 followers and a highlight reel titled, "#Family First, Family First." I could have laughed myself into a hernia. A couple days later, my landlord called to say rent was going up again because apparently fixing the buzzer counted as a building upgrade. I hung up, muttered something colorful, then opened my laptop and did something I hadn't done in years. I pulled up the old SnapFix logo. The lightning bolt still made me smirk. I started from scratch. If Jeremy got a 6-figure boost to start Winslow Consulting, I'd do it without anyone's help. I didn't need a yacht. I just wanted to not flinch every time I opened my banking app. By the end of the week, I had a bare-bones website, a public Instagram, and a cheap vinyl decal on the side of my 2006 Nissan. It was crooked, but it was mine. SnapFix 2.0 was alive. No business cards, no marketing team, no catered launch party. Just a kid with a borrowed socket set and Wi-Fi from his neighbor's router that reached the hallway. I started offering discounted fixes to local businesses cash only. I told them if they referred someone, they'd get $10 off their next job. Within 3 weeks, I had a backlog. It was weird. Every time I held a repaired device or saw a customer smile after their laptop stopped overheating like a toaster, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not the kind you fake for Facebook likes, the kind you earn when you do something not because someone funded it or clapped for it, but because you just didn't stop. And still, I heard nothing from my family. No one noticed I'd left the graduation early. No one texted to ask how I was. Not until I saw the next photo. It was Jeremy standing in front of a billboard, a real one on a highway. Jeremy Winslow, founder, visionary leader. The tagline, "Let's fix what's broken." I stared at it for a full minute. Then I took a screenshot, closed the app, and smiled because I had a better idea of what needed fixing and it wasn't his brand. It started with a missed call from an unknown number, then another, and another. By the time I finished fixing an overheating gaming PC for a kid who paid me in wrinkled cash and a leftover bag of Takis, my phone screen looked like a telemarketing bingo card. I didn't recognize the numbers, but I recognized the pattern. They were from my hometown's area code. I let them go to voicemail. A few hours later, one left a message. It was my mom. Her voice was tight, not angry, nervous. "Hi, Ryan. Just checking in. Something's come up. Give me a call when you can, okay?" I didn't because after 26 years of being their afterthought, I'd finally remembered that silence was also a reply. The next morning, 17 missed calls, then a text from my dad. "Need to talk. It's urgent. Call your mother." I sat there in my SnapFix hoodie eating instant noodles out of a coffee mug because I'd chipped my last bowl and wondered what could possibly be urgent enough for them to remember I existed. So I did what any petty wounded older sibling would do. I Googled it. Turns out Winslow Consulting had just announced its first official contract, and it immediately hit a PR iceberg. Jeremy's flagship client posted a brutal thread on Twitter saying he'd ghosted them after missing a deadline, then tried to invoice them for $18,000 worth of strategic alignment sessions. They posted screenshots, emails, even a calendar invite titled, "How to Explain KPIs to Founders Who Don't Get It." The thread went viral, actual trending viral. Suddenly, Winslow Consulting wasn't a symbol of visionary leadership. It was a meme. One tweet showed Jeremy with the caption, "Consulting more like consulting." Another said, when your mom's love builds your company, don't be shocked when it collapses under compliments. That one made me laugh so hard I spilled soy sauce on my laptop. 3 hours later, a new voicemail. It was Jeremy. Ryan. Hey, I don't know if you've seen what's going on, but look, I messed up. I was wondering if we could talk. Oh, now we're on a first-name basis. I didn't answer. The next one came the following morning from my mom this time with more urgency. I know you're upset. I know we haven't always made you feel included, but your brother's going through something serious. Maybe you could help him out just for now. That just for now part. Yeah, that told me everything. They didn't want me back. They wanted a patch. They needed the kid. They ignored the cute little repair idea guy to come fix the Golden Boy's mess. I looked around my tiny apartment, peeling paint a chair I'd rescued from the sidewalk, my name taped to my toolbox with marker, because I still didn't own a label maker. I had no yacht, no investors, no family dinners with toasted champagne. But you know what? I had clients, loyal ones, people who paid on time, who left handwritten thank you notes, who referred me to their friends without needing to be begged. I had a job I built from duct tape and rejection, and I wasn't about to use it to save a brother who once thanked everyone but me in a graduation speech. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my mom back. When she answered breathless, I said 3 words, "How's the gift bag?" Then I hung up. I expected fallout after that phone call, maybe a guilt trip, maybe my mom showing up at my door with a casserole and a fresh wave of emotional manipulation. But what I got was nothing. Silence. They didn't call back, which honestly stung more than I expected. Part of me thought my line would ignite something, maybe even earn a little respect. But no, I wasn't the prodigal son. I was still the extra chair they forgot to set at the table. But I didn't have time to dwell, because while my family was busy pretending their lives weren't unraveling, mine was picking up speed. Snapfix 2.0 was growing fast. One of my small business clients, a cafe owner named Mel, who made killer lemon bars and always overpaid me, tagged me in a post that went local viral. She wrote, "Laptop died mid-payroll. Snapfix guy fixed it in 20 minutes and saved my sanity. Support your locals." That post got picked up by a neighborhood Facebook group, then the small business chamber, then a local news anchor who thought it was wholesome content to toss in right before weather. Within a week, I had over 40 new messages requests from salons, vape shops, therapists, bakeries. One woman ran a balloon sculpture business and managed to fry her MacBook by plugging it into a leaf blower. Don't ask, I didn't. My phone didn't stop buzzing. I started keeping a clipboard just to organize incoming requests. I didn't even own a clipboard before. And for the first time ever, I got to say those 4 magical words, "I'll put you down." You know what happens when the quiet kids start saying that people listen. By mid-month, I had enough saved to move out of my 1-bedroom shoebox and into a slightly larger shoebox with a real kitchen and working heat. I even bought a second-hand service van. Not flashy, but mine. No ribbon-cutting ceremony, no champagne, no staged LinkedIn post, just a Craigslist key exchange and a Snapfix lightning bolt decal. I applied myself this time perfectly straight. I also made a new set of business cards. They just said, "Ryan Carter, owner repair guy, not here for drama." Then came the text from Jeremy. "I know we haven't always been close, but I was wondering, could you take a look at my setup? There's been a lot of heat on the company and my tech's a mess. Could use your expertise. Would pay, of course." Would pay? He said it like he was doing me a favor. No apology, no acknowledgement, just a request with bare minimum courtesy, like I was a guy he found on Yelp. I didn't reply right away. I let it sit. Then at midnight, I screenshotted the text and posted it to my Snapfix story with the caption, "When the golden boy needs the forgotten kid to plug in the lights." It wasn't petty. Okay, maybe a little, but my inbox exploded. Clients laughed. A few even said, "Tell him you're booked until next century." One woman offered to bake me a "not your tech guy" cake. I told her I'd print stickers. Then Mom called again. Voicemail only. "Ryan, this is getting childish. You've made your point. Jeremy is still your brother. He needs help. Don't hold a grudge over something so small." So small. Funny, the graduation. The gift bag, the startup funding, the years of being invisible. So small. I didn't call her back, but I did send her a Venmo request for 1 cent, for emotional damages with compounded interest. She declined it, then blocked me. It's strange how quickly silence becomes power. For most of my life, I've filled the void. I cracked the jokes, downplayed the hurt, made excuses for why I wasn't invited or why maybe they just forgot. But once I stopped trying, oh, it echoed. The Venmo request may have been petty, but something shifted after that. Maybe it embarrassed her. Maybe it forced her to admit even for a second that I wasn't just background noise. I didn't hear from her again. But then my dad called. I let it ring twice, 3 times. He left a voicemail. "Hey, Ryan just wanted to touch base. It's been a hectic couple of weeks. Your mother's been upset. Jeremy's trying to pull himself together. Look, I know we haven't always done right by you, but if there's anything you can do to help him right now, we'd all really appreciate it." I actually replayed that message 3 times. That line, "We haven't always done right by you," that was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from my father. And yet it still wasn't for me. It was about me, sure, but the intent was aimed at Jeremy. I was a stepping stone in his redemption arc. I didn't respond. A week later, I got a letter in the mail, like a physical letter. Who even does that? It was from my mom, handwritten on cream-colored stationery, weirdly formal, like she was writing to a college admissions board, not her own son. She wrote about how proud they were of me finding my own way. She said she'd seen Snapfix online and loved the lightning bolt, like that made up for 2 decades of forgetting my birthday. She said, maybe the family could reconnect soon. And at the end, a postscript. Jeremy's company is struggling to recover. His equipment is outdated. He doesn't trust anyone right now, but he trusts you. Please consider helping your brother. Family sticks together. Family sticks together after the graduation, the missing seat, the invisible name tag, the gift bags for everyone but me. They didn't want a family. They wanted a tech guy. I stared at the letter, and for a second I actually felt it, that tiny pang of guilt they'd trained into me since childhood. The voice in my head that said, don't make a scene. Just be useful. But it didn't last, because tucked into the envelope they included a photo from the graduation. Everyone smiling, everyone holding up their monogrammed gift bags, everyone except me. I flipped it over. On the back someone had scribbled, "Such a perfect day." I laughed. I actually laughed. Then I went to my fridge, poured myself a glass of orange juice, and pulled out my notebook, the same one I used to plan Snapfix 2.0. I wrote a list, a short one. Things I owe my family. Explanations. Nope. Apologies already gave those, they didn't notice. Tech support, not a chance. A call back. Still thinking, leaning toward number. Loyalty to people who only remember me when the Wi-Fi drops, hard pass. Then I turned the page and wrote the title, New Project Snapfix Collective. A program for young underfunded tech workers to borrow tools, get mentorship, and share contracts. I'd been thinking about it for a while, but now it had teeth. It wouldn't be about revenge. It would be about replacement, replacing the energy I wasted, chasing their approval with something tangible, something generous, something that didn't leave people out. If Jeremy could blow through a 6-figure check on logos and buzzwords, I'd build something real quietly on purpose. And when I was done, I wouldn't need to say a word, because the work would speak for itself. 2 months passed. No calls, no letters. Just digital silence, with occasional sightings of Jeremy's slow-motion crash through social media posts I didn't ask to see. Winslow Consulting had paused operations for internal restructuring. Translation. It tanked. His once polished website now led to a dead landing page with a blurry logo and a vague apology statement. We are reevaluating our strategic direction. My favorite part, a footer that still said, proudly supported by family. The irony could have powered a small town. Meanwhile, Snapfix had grown legs. A small crew, 2 contractors and 1 kid I started mentoring, joined me for jobs. We kept it lean. Tools in the back of the van, jokes in the front seat, work orders pinned to a whiteboard we found in a dumpster, and we never looked back. The Snapfix Collective kicked off with 5 tech workers in borrowed hoodies and nervous ambition. By month 3, we had sponsors, real ones. A local co-working space gave us free desks. A startup offered us used hardware. A non-profit helped us print branded shirts. And somewhere along the way, I got an email I wasn't expecting. Hi, Ryan. I'm writing from the Chamber of Commerce. You've been nominated for our local Impact Award. I read it 3 times, thinking it was spam. It wasn't. They were serious. So I showed up to the dinner alone by choice, wearing a blazer from Goodwill and a lightning bolt pin on my lapel. They sat me at a real table this time, with a name card and everything. The award wasn't huge, no prize money, no confetti, just a glass plaque and a 2-minute speech I hadn't prepared. But when I got on that stage, something hit me. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't planning to drag my family or clap back at Jeremy in front of strangers. I didn't need to. Instead, I said this: sometimes the loudest voices in your life aren't cheering for you. They're just making noise. But the quiet work, the steady hands, that's where real things happen. Thank you for seeing me. People clapped. A few stood. One guy from a digital marketing firm gave me his card and said we should talk. I left before dessert. The next morning, I posted a photo of the plaque on the Snapfix page captioned, "No gift bag needed." It didn't go viral. It didn't need to. But 3 hours later, my phone buzzed. It was a number I hadn't saved but still recognized. Jeremy. This time he didn't ask for help. He just said, "Congrats, I saw the post. You deserve it." And I replied, "Thanks, I do." Then I muted the thread, not out of anger, but because closure isn't always a door.